guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident Podcast, a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. Welcome. We are excited to introduce our co-host, Sambaza, host and creator of the Sambaza podcast, a remarkable figure in the podcasting world, hailing from the Republic of Kenya. He has garnered 3 nominations for Best African Diasporan Podcast and by the APVA, and also nominated for Best Blog by the Texas Creator Awards. Welcome to the show, Sambaza.
Hey Jen, what's going on today? Everything okay?
Yes, welcome in. Welcome in. Let's see here. So yeah, got some topics that we want to get into today. No guests, but you'll just have us, Sambaza and I. But definitely wanted to get into an evergreen topic that I thought was pretty interesting. And before we introduce the topic, why don't you share an affirmation?
All right, I was just getting ourselves set up here. We are on live on TikTok, and also
Hmm,
we're going to be live on Clubhouse. So
okay.
whatever is going on can catch us on both those streams. Now, the affirmation for today, actually, this affirmation is for the month of July. It says, I breathe in clarity and exhale. All other no longer serves me. So I'll repeat again. I breathe in clarity. Let me say, I breathe in clarity and exhale all that no longer serves me. Ooh, asa, usa.
Okay, that is a good one. I needed that for this evening. So I received that.
Uh-huh.
And also, I didn't ask how things were going with you. Is everybody in the family good? How are things?
Oh, everything is great. I want to say Uh, it's only that where the mood is not all that great right now in Texas, in the state of Texas, because of
Definitely.
those storms. And we're praying for people, praying for good things to happen to all those people who are missing, to find them,
Hmm.
and also pray for the ones who have lost loved ones at this time. So, yeah, that's what's going on. But other than that, family and friends, everyone is doing okay.
Okay.
Can't
And
complain. Yeah. Actually,
no
hey,
issues with the storm where you reside.
no, no, no.
So,
It's been
okay, that's
raining. It's one of these summers that has been raining. Oh, by the way, Jen, I wanted to introduce you to something. I am actually dog sitting 2 dogs.
okay.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
Well, you like animals, so I mean, that's not too far fetched,
Yeah,
but
they're big dogs too.
good,
Yeah.
good.
All right.
That's good. Well, we're glad that you're safe, and definitely our thoughts are with the ones suffering. Look, there's people dealing with the tornado that's happened in my neck of the woods. People are still dealing with the effects of that. You actually had some family members that were in the tornado and things like that. And people are still trying to put pieces, of their life back together. So these things can really, take a toll. And, our heart goes out to those dealing with that. But there certainly are resources out there if
Mhm.
people need resources. All
True. So,
right. For sure. For sure. For sure.
yeah, if you can't find something, just go ahead and ask around. I'm pretty sure you can't miss resources. There are plenty out there. Yeah, your local town, there should be Red Crosses there, and St. Is this not St. Oh yeah, we'll go with Red Cross for now. I know there's another one that also helps out. All right.
Mhm.
What else do you have for today for the topic?
Yeah, so we will introduce our topic. So, we wanted to talk about code switching and code switching fatigue. So, you may wonder, what it is that? How does that affect us? But I've been hearing a lot of conversations about this, and even spaces where I found an article with Essence Magazine from
Mm,
November of 2024 that talked about this fatigue and this exhaustion that a lot of African Americans in our culture feel from code switching. But aside from that, I've actually heard this topic talked about in non-melanated audio spaces, and you may recall some of those conversations too. So a lot of people kind of deal with their own. So I kind of want to get into that definition of what it is, and do we, what do we feel about this exhaustion and effect on mental health that it can take? So I will, get into that conversation. Before we go further, do you have a African proverb to share as well?
Yes. So this time I visited the country of Comoros, which is also nicknamed Perfume Isles.
Hmm.
Now, the reason is because they have a large production of, I don't know how to say this, it's YLANG slash dash YLANG. I guess it's Ylang Ylang.
Okay.
But I don't know if you like Chanel number 5 perfume.
I'm familiar with it.
All right, all right. So that actually forms the basis
Mhm,
of the perfume, and Comoros is actually one of the least visited countries with only around 28,000
mhm,
tourists. So that could be a hotspot for you if you want to travel over there. And they have three official languages. That's Shikomori, French, and Arabic.
okay.
Now, the proverb, it says, you can win a woman with lies, but you cannot feed her with lies.
Okay.
How can you what do you say about the proverb? I mean, what can you think of a day to day um version of it, or how do you um
Um,
proverb?
I don't know about a day-to-day version or a current version of that, but I guess just as far as interpretation, lies will not it's probably best to be honest, and authentic. What's done in the dark will come to the light. I don't know, but yeah, so it's best to be honest and authentic and not deception. You can't sustain a relationship, you can't sustain a friendship based on lies. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I accept that. It's one of those proverbs that says, be honest, because
Hmm.
remember, when you say something in honesty, you don't have to remember it ever again, because if you start with a lie, you have to keep lying and lying and remember those lies that you said. So if you say
That's
something
true.
with honesty, you don't have to worry about it and keep going, and it'll be from the bottom of your heart that you're
Right.
saying, or you're doing something. So with this proverb, it tells us, just be honest with yourself, so that your honesty will just keep, you know, getting. I guess you're building up on it, right? And
Okay.
like if you literally say, you'll get somebody with lies, but you can't feed her with lies. That doesn't work, you know.
You
So
cannot sustain, right? The relationship will not make,
yeah, yeah,
sustain.
right. And we got comments, by the way, regarding
Do.
the proverb. And from the chats, we have Ed Campbell and Anthony from About the Wallet. Ed
Good
Campbell says,
evening to
"Oh,
Anthony.
Anthony says good evening," and he's from About the Wallet podcast. Ed Campbell says, "Peace and gratitude, family. Welcome to the show, guys. We appreciate you all to be here." Um, so About the Wallet says, "Tell her she looks thin in those jeans. You'll be fed the whole day." And
Okay,
I
you
agree.
think so, huh?
Yeah, he said before that you can't feed her with lies. True, yeah, you can't feed her with lies. So, yep. So,
Mhm.
that's the proverb for the day. And did I just? That's the proverb that we have for the day, and
Okay.
from Africa, and it's from the Comoros Island.
Okay.
Now, you're going to talk about. We're talking about code switching, and I wanted to say
We are.
this is alternating language, tone, behavior to fit in context. I guess you're going to say we're going to say, for example, the constant adapting language, behavior, or appearance to fit into different social and professional spaces. So, code
Mhm.
switching fatigue, the mental, emotional exhaustion from constantly monitoring and adapting yourself. Wow, this is a broad topic. But breaking it down, when you cut,
Okay.
it's a broad topic, but when you cut it down and what we're going to talk about in terms of mental health and
Mhm.
emotional well being, it becomes an interesting topic. And we also refer code switching. I don't know if they said when like for example me as I am, when I go talking, I'll be like you know um we'll be talking in a different context, and or may I speak with my accent. You can come here and we can speak like this, and how the way it comes out. But when I'm in a different setting, I have to change and start speaking like what say speaking proper. Sometimes we say that we call that in our African sense code switching. Like when I'm at,
Okay.
I speak differently. When you catch me in the village, I'm not going to be speaking like I'm speaking. It'll be with a teeny bitty accent. But when I come to the US, I have to change. Otherwise, Jen, you will not understand me.
Okay.
So
You
that's
mean
how.
like you hit them with the Swahili, or I
Yeah,
mean, okay, so
that part. Yeah, that part with the
mhm,
Swahili, or even with my English, I have to kind of switch the way I speak my Swahili.
mhm,
Be
mhm.
different. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, I want to share something. I mentioned the Essence article, but
Mhm.
they mentioned a statistic in there which I thought was interesting about the fatigue. I think a lot of people talk about the code switching part, but the fatigue, I think, is kind of a newer conversation surrounding code switching. And so the name of the article that was in the last November's issue was Survival Mode is Killing Us, the True Cost of Code Switching at Work. And so it talks about how specifically code switching in white dominant workspaces has led to a lot of African American women feeling
Mhm.
chronic stress and aging, hypertension, and them in the article promoting why you should be more authentic in your work safe to kind of just like save your health, and the stress levels of, these conversations of changing your hair and your outfit or your accessories. Is it too much? Is someone going to say things, and all of these little microaggressions? And they actually, so here's a statistic about health though, because I was like, is
Mhm.
this really tied to a health matter? So published in the American Journal of Public Health, it did a study about Black women who reported higher levels of racial discrimination, and this was tied to cellular aging. So, um, people who code
Aging.
switches, and it was like tied to discrimination in the workplace. So they tied these things, and they in the study they related it to cellular aging equivalent to someone 7.5 years older. So they're saying facing discrimination, literally shaving years off your life because of the stress associated. So what do we think about that and the fatigue part?
I'm gonna say yes. There's the fatigue
Mhm.
part where yes, you would have to code switch, but don't we all code switch? Because anytime you start off like even as a like in the business, you're talking to your
Mhm.
audience. There's a
Mhm.
different type of audience and a different type of space. When you move to that space, you cannot stay in that in in one particular in one particular way. For example, there's something called corporate speak. Have you ever
Mhm.
heard? Now, corporate
Yeah.
speak is where
Yeah.
the boss starts telling you, "Oh, we did this leverage on this, sage on this, and then moved up parallel on this," and you're like, "What are you talking about?" So when they're talking corporate speak, it's different to when he's talking to his supervisors or the regular worker that works for him. Now, when you look at all these two elements with the code switching of a person, naturally you're supposed to code switch depending on what area you're getting. When you're at home, I
Mhm.
don't speak the same way I'll be speaking when I'm at work. When I'm on my podcast, when we're on the podcast,
Mhm.
we don't talk. This is not us. Well, I think probably this is us, but I don't think this is us when another stage. When I'm with my fellow Africans or African Americans, I interact differently. So we do
Hmm.
at all times. And yes, I believe that people say you want to be authentic and be yourself and come out right.
True.
But to start off, you're always code switching naturally.
So I'll push back, and this is just me, like you're saying for you. I feel like I'm pretty close to where I am all the time. Like, and I've had people, make fun of me for the way I speak, but I talk like this even when at work. Like I may not be as chatty and, free to just, be a chatter. And I'm just kind of a naturally quiet person generally. So I feel like I am that person in my podcast life, in my work life, in my social life. I'm more one of the quiet ones in the group. I'm in a lot of social, I'm in organizations, I'm in a sorority, I'm in a lot of social things. So I'm kind of like a quiet, social butterfly. And I feel like I am that person no matter what I do, even with this podcast. I'm not just F word flying because that's just not who I am. You know what I mean? Um, and talking reckless like that's just not me anyway. So and I even shared that I used to kind of keep the pod separate from work life, but there's a few people I was comfortable enough to share it with, and I'm actually okay. Everything I put out, I'm proud of it. So the ones that I have, they've actually complimented me and things like that. And if the bosses see it, it's out here. So I kind of am okay with who I am authentically in this big grown age. But I mean, it depends on the person, I guess, But you said you feel like, and you kind of have a similar personality to me. So I thought that was interesting that you feel like you do this big code switch. You don't feel like you are who you are wherever.
I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I get tired, and I've
Mhm.
noticed that when sometimes I'd get tired and I want to step back, and I want to step back and just be one to sit back and watch what's going on. And when I do that, I catch myself, and I
Okay.
notice that time I'm emotionally drained. I don't want to be in that particular space. But I think maybe
Mhm.
that's just me at that time. I may have given it my all, right?
Mhm.
And for me, I have to get into character, especially
Okay.
with public speaking, emceeing, and being you have to be somebody else on stage rather than uh, or when you're in with your family. When I was with my
Okay.
family, it's a whole different ball game. I'll clown around and do that. See, then code
Mhm.
switch back. I'm supposed to be on stage. I have to act differently. You'll see me act differently. Or say, for example, when I'm doing my ref work, refereeing, I have to
Mhm.
be this serious guy that you have to be careful what you say, what you do around
Yeah.
you, and all those other things. So you tend to switch up. Yeah, and I think I do a good job at switching, code switching. Or what do you
Okay.
think?
I mean, Yes, I mean everybody has their moment when they just like, okay, like
Right.
you're on a rant or whatever. We are entitled to a
Mhm.
rant, but generally, I think I'm pretty close. Why don't you acknowledge some comments?
Oh, sure. Um, let's see. We got Ed Campbell is saying, "Why do you feel like you have to change the way you speak? I talk, I walk, talk, and am apologetically me in every space and place I go into. Why do people code switch?" Hmm.
Okay, so we got some
And
info on that. Okay,
you're dropping gems. Thanks for being authentically Jen. Okay.
okay. Let me get back into the outline because there was this one piece that kind of talks
'Cause I
about.
got something to say about that too.
Okay, so this is adapting the speech, the appearance, the behavior. So, this is done in an effort to fit dominant cultural expectations. So there's these expectations of how we should be, okay? And so that's part of it. And then it talks about exploring the emotional and cognitive burden, self doubt. Well, these are things that happen as a result of um, okay, and then you share some other.
So now here's the thing. Okay. There's a coworker of mine who he won a trip with his family, and they were
Mhm.
going to a ski trip. Never been to a ski trip before, but there are a lot of non-melanated people. Actually, he even met Tiger Woods over there. So before he went, his mom told him, "Don't go there and be ethnic." Now, what does that say?
Mm.
You,
Mhm.
I mean, hey, he was just told, "Don't be ethnic." So if you're being told not to be ethnic, that means that there's some way you behave that you're told when you go into that space, you're supposed to behave a certain way. So
Or a stereotype of what people think ethnic people behave with being loud and things like that. But that's, a stereotype, essentially.
I think when you behave different, if you don't code switch to the look to what you're supposed to be, then people will look at you and be like, you know what, that person is now, they'll start stereotyping you.
Okay.
So you will be stereotyped once you get into a space. So the reason why a code switch is an adaptation to
Mhm.
the scenario you are in, or place or space that you're sitting at, right?
Right.
Anything to deviate from that, now people start stereotyping and say, see, that black person, that's how they act. That African person, that's how they act. That
Mm.
white person, that's how they act. You see?
Mhm.
So by you behaving a certain way. Now this time we were talking about, the changing your voice, speaking your words, speaking proper. You can't bring your colloquialism. I try to hide my accent, with without them heavy words, and whichever thing I'll do, maybe with my hair, like they say, tweaking your hair instead of coming with an afro. Sometime before, an afro was not that good. Was looked at, not nice natural hair. You had to wear those long weaves and stuff like that. That was a cool thing. So code switching to be cool, to bring out a certain idea of a black woman, instead of having that, the afro stuff and all that. So you see, those are the things that women were being subjected to, as being to be in that organization. So then you get a promotion, you get all this stuff. Well, whereas if uh, I don't want to use names here, but if she came in with cornrows, they'll look at her as different. If she came with a natural hair, cornrows, and what you be like,
I'm cringing because of, there are, African Americans who, wear natural hair that are CEOs, and there has been the Crown Act. We've talked about the Crown Act on this show several
"Hmm,
times and had conversations with, Walt Gaynor and things like that about why that legislation is so important. And let me find since you went on about the hair thing, I'm kind of cringing over here. That, I mean, do you think that people really,
I don't think
can't
it's a matter."
wear their hair in the natural style
You
and
should.
be
No, no, no,
okay?
no. You should wear in your natural style. I'm sure if I should be allowed to, if I want to wear like that sarong, the sarong that I wear, like on top
Mhm,
of a
mhm.
with a shirt, and I wear my beads and necklaces, whatever. I should be allowed to do that. That is my heritage. Let me be
Right.
free and do it like that. However, in these particular spaces, people sometimes feel threatened. First of all, because of the way it will maybe make you shine or look different. You'll stand out,
Okay.
right?
Mhm,
um that's kind of where it all entails. When you look at how it happens, to now you say, okay, do I want to shine out, or do I want to stay the way I am? Now,
mhm,
I don't know, I'll throw in a story here. There's a guy called Congo Kid. When I was doing that 30-day challenge, he's African,
mhm,
he lived in the Congo. So picture this. He even says in one of his podcasts. So he goes for a business lunch with the people in his office. Now, when they go sit over there, the husband is the CEO, and the wife is there too. So they're
mhm,
talking business stuff. Then suddenly she says, "Oh, tell him about how you were in Congo," because this guy grew up in Congo.
mhm.
This guy was like, "I didn't want to mention that." because this is not the space for it. I have a podcast, I live there, and all that stuff. So he went through the whole lunch explaining, and people were so fascinated. Then after that, he had to go back and tell the lady, I just didn't want to talk about stuff like that because I didn't feel like it was an appropriate time. We were
Mhm.
discussing business. And you see how it is. He's still trying to move to this particular space, but somebody identifies you with Congo, right? And you don't
Right.
like it. You want to be known as a business person. So you see where that fight is, where now you have to get yourself in it and be part of the whatever.
I mean, and I just think like there wasn't anything else about the Congo that he could say in a positive, like.
It was, but they were like, "Oh, growing up, we want to know about your life, how you grew up."
Mhm,
Because wife knew something about him growing up there, so then he had
mhm.
to explain all that, and they keep asking questions, and then the question turned off. Instead of being what they were celebrating about the business and what they were doing about the business, it's all about him being in Congo. Even though it made an interesting conversation, he said that did not help him at all.
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah,
now
that's true.
you might go there. Now let bring in contest, right? Us, you could go there with your cornrows, and then some other lady. I'm just going to throw it out there. Non-melanated will look at it and say, "Oh, I like your hair." First of all, let them not touch your hair.
Okay.
Then they ask you, "Oh, how did you do that? How did you do this? How did you do?" You're like, "Please, come on now. It's not. This is not the place and time." But they're so interested, but they don't realize space and time.
Mhm.
So you see that already now puts you in a different way, and maybe your next door neighbor is also black, but your next has straight hair, like a weave, and they don't ask her that question. See how it is?
So, you with the hair thing again. I feel like people should be able to wear their hair
Mhm,
however they want, even not having hair, like our
mhm.
beautiful and fabulous guest that we had a few weeks back. Shout out to Miss Angel, who talked about
Maybe
having alopecia and wears her hair bald. However, people want to show up and be themselves, I think is amazing. And like she even shared that it took time and she had to get comfortable with the comments or kids mocking and things like that. But I feel like when you show up as yourself and exude that confidence, like it fills the room, you know what I mean? And I feel like you can enter any space, a professional space, coming in if you have the confidence and self-pride and things like that.
self-pride, self-confidence. Now you
For
have
sure.
those, you can pull it up. Some characters can come
Hmm.
into a room, and you'll see them, they own the room. So whatever they're wearing or whatever they say in that room or in that particular space, it will not matter what they look like, what they're wearing, and anything. Somebody will look at them and be like, "Okay, okay, 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 welcome to our space. Yes, you might look different. Welcome to."
Hmm.
But it's really hard to pull that off, because how many people will pull that off? What I'll say is, and this is, if you get that one person to do that, that's the opening door to the rest of you.
Hmm.
So if
Yeah.
somebody comes with cornrows, and then she's the bold person and stands in the group, and the other people in that particular space are like, "You know what? Yeah, we kind of like it, and it's accepted." Then it opens up for everybody else. But till that time, yeah, you're gonna have to code switch and be in that particular space. It's kind of like
So
another racism, right?
look, all of these are microaggressions, and
True, true,
up
true.
it's up to the person to decide if, am I comfortable being authentic or do I feel like I need to modify myself? Here's some information I found. I thought this was
Mhm.
interesting. Strategies for managing code switching fatigue. So this is not just the code switching, but the fatigue and the exhaustion that people feel from modifying your behavior and actions in this way. So the first one is acknowledge the skill and resilience involved in the code switching.
Mhm.
Share tips for reclaiming authenticity. Authenticity. There's that word again. Seek out supportive environments where your identity is valued. I feel like that is key. Go where you're celebrated, not just tolerated. You know what I mean? If you and I, a lot of people, feel some type of way about coming into a really toxic work environment, and eventually they make a plan to exit stage left because it's not serving you if you're coming into a space that is not letting you shine, or you feel that you have to endure unnecessary stress and things like that. So I feel like that one, seek out supportive environments where your identity is valued, is really key. Two other ones listed here in what information I found on ChatGPT. Set boundaries around when and how much you code switch. So they're saying, okay, if you're going to code switch, put some limits on it. Just try to be authentic, but put boundaries around it. Maybe if you're going into court, you present a different way versus being in the office at the water cooler or what have you. The other one is practice self-reflection to recognize moments of inauthenticity and their impact. So that's an interesting, to recognize when, okay, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Like, this ain't adding up. So we
I
got
like,
some comments.
yeah, I like the part. I like, before we hit the comments, I like the
Mhm,
part where you're saying you get to be authentic, reclaim
mhm.
your authenticity. Don't
Yes.
forget, whenever you walk in there, you are there. They see you already. You're different, so let them acknowledge who you are,
Right.
by you being authentic. Because once you take your authenticity away, you kind of lose your identity, right?
Right. Right.
And then you say yes, you are where you go to supportive environments where it's valued. Now,
Hmm.
set boundaries around when and how much you code switch. That
Hmm.
is very,
Hmm.
very, very, very important. Um, and I think there's one thing I'm going to say, and I've realized this when I moved to my job,
Hmm.
in the beginning, I had a hard time understanding the American values, while they had a different when my other counterparts, so that not my coworkers, but my supervisor and everybody else in the department, had a hard time understanding us as Africans. I think there was the first time they were experiencing us and how we dealt with stuff, right?
Okay.
And the experiences were different. And I'll say this, after a while, they understood us. And that created this whole idea of a global, when they say the world is a global village, then now they can understand each other. And I'm hoping that when or if they were able to move out to other spaces where they met Africans, they'll be like, okay,
Hmm.
I met a Kenyan, and this is how the Kenyan were. We created a good environment to whereby it fostered better development of character to the other people and themselves on how to deal with each other. You see?
Okay.
Yeah. Now let's go to the comments. Ed Campbell says I think it's vital that we take the damn mask off and be our black artistic selves. True, true. We need to do that. Yeah, you don't have to code switch. Well, that's debatable. The code
Said,
thing.
brother, you don't have to go. That's to
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Now about the wallet brings up another interesting thing. It says like going to Afros and audio. Yes.
Okay. And I think those spaces where we're valued is kind of where he chimed in on that, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Now, one of the things that I was also going to say. Oh, Tiffany says comments are off. Are we having any comments that are off? You can't post some comments in some destinations. I don't know which ones she's on, but maybe.
Oh, on okay. Yeah, I think there's limits.
Okay,
Just the ones on YouTube. Not I don't have the Facebook ones popping through, I think.
oh, the YouTube ones are limited.
No, the YouTube ones are popping through, but the not the Facebook ones.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, you'd have to be on YouTube to be able to catch on these ones, not Facebook. All right. Anyway, so that was just one of the things. Okay, now yes, going to Afros and audio that provides a good space for us
Hmm.
as African Americans,
Yes,
a safe space. Now, this is very controversial. The, so if somebody else who's not melanated comes to Afros and audio, which you're very much allowed to, nobody's stopping you. That is as an ambassador for Afros and audio, which I would like everyone to show up if you are in the Baltimore area, or you can fly to the Baltimore area 16th to the 19th of October. That's when it's going to go down. Please show up there, and it'll be a whole bunch of podcasters who are going to talk about podcasting and everything else. So I think now, if somebody who's not melanated shows up, do they have to code switch at that point?
I would say not because actually we attended last year, and if you recall, there were many non-melanated, we just say white vendors,
Mhm.
and they were, speaking with everyone. I mean, I feel like, it's unnecessary to for anyone have to code switch. You know what I mean? You show up as your best self like you should anywhere. And they, were there to, share their product or service or whatever. They were in a room full of people, potential customers, clients, or what have you. And if
Mhm.
I'm, a business owner, whether I'm white or a minority, if it's a room full of podcasters who are potential clients, I'm going to show up there and be a vendor. Why not? You know what I mean? I think that was kind of the thinking hat of the ones that showed up, but it was, quite a few non-black people there. As why not?
Now, does that make us more accommodating when it comes to accepting other people in our spaces?
Does
Like
it
when
make
people
us
come,
more?
when somebody comes in from another place, like
Mhm.
white people, when they come to our space, like for example, Afros and Odie, they
Okay.
show up there. They don't have to code switch, do they?
No, but I've heard,
They can say, "Hey,
Coast.
my brother, hey, my sister." You can
But
start saying, "Hey, my
see, that's a stereotype. What is that? What is that you're doing? What is that? I
brother."
didn't do
They
that.
can't do that. You
So
got to get that card.
that's in your mind what I don't know who's doing what that's a mocking of. But I think everyone, and even in other cultures, code switch. Maybe they don't, be as opinionated or what have you, because this did come up in a non-black audio space that we share and spend time in too. And they were pretty much talking about code switching where they are not as opinionated or they're not as open or they may not, talk about religion and politics or things like, things like that. And that type of code switching. So, if, in that regard, I feel like everyone may do it, in some regard.
Okay. About the wallet has say something here, which I don't want to miss. Is that why Will Smith went overseas to go where he's celebrated? He was promoting his new song "Pretty Girls."
I
I
am
think.
not familiar with that. I'm not hip. I'm not hip.
Yeah, but okay. I I want us to look at code switching as, can it be
Mhm.
looked as an artifact, like an artifact of, or a custom.
Okay.
Those are customs, artifacts of a certain people that you adapt yourself to, right?
Hmm.
So if you're gonna go and be in a particular space, is it right to code switch? I wanna throw that out there. What do you think? Is it right to do that? Because I think on some levels, if it's too hard, then I wouldn't take myself there.
Yeah, like if you are like this whole concept of fatigue,
Mhm.
this stress, this unnecessary stress and exhaustion, and people are actually like to the point of being sick and anxiety and things like that. Then you need to remove yourself from the situation, because why endure that? Why put yourself through that? You know. But in this kind of light level of code switching, where maybe you're not oversharing and mixed company or unfamiliar company, and I think that's kind of a safe level of code switching to do. But you definitely want to put your best foot forward, show up as your best self, wherever you go, and I think you should kind of adopt that as a practice. But you know definitely don't overshare if it's unnecessary. Go where you're celebrated, and things like that, and try to avoid these, and situations that cause you stress and anxiety and things like that.
So just like the way when you go out to dinner, right? Or you're invited to a party, and then they ask you, "Hey, you want to show up to a party? What do you ask?" You ask them, "Hey, what is the dress code? Business casual, casual, or
Okay.
show out?" So would that be where you would think, okay, I'm going to this particular space. Do I have to code switch to where I'll be business casual, casual, or dressy?
That's not really a code switch. That's just like adhering
I'm
to
just
the
telling you,
dress code, right?
that's kind of how
Okay.
you would look at it when you're.
Hmm.
This is a
Hmm.
different environment. These are
Hmm.
three different environments. So if we're to look at it, how do you have to prepare yourself mentally, and at what times do you basically, I'm saying, how do you prepare yourself mentally to go into this? And if you feel like, okay, this is not my my space where I can be my authentic self, how do you get out of that particular space? Like, for example, if I invite you for to an African wedding, right? Like you said, you cannot overshare. You have to learn our customs. You can go and be
Hmm.
somewhere. Like, for example, okay, so I have to say this. So we go to this wedding, Nigerian wedding. They say three kids 3 years and below have to be sitting in a different area because we're adults on this other side. So the guy says this. He comes up and says, "Look, if your child can chew bone, they need to be in the other side." And we're like, wait a minute, why did he say that? But he was trying to tell you, if your child can chew a bone, they need to be on the other side. He doesn't have to say literally, your child can chew food, right?
Hmm.
So these were some of the customs. And when they said it, it was kind of weird in itself, funny in itself.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
you understand the concept. Somebody else will be like, wait a minute, what did they just say? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
So, so you want to get into these spaces. How do you get yourself ready? Or if it's not comfortable for you, how would you get out? I want to pose that to you.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to a special cultural, event, you definitely may want to do a little research on, what is appropriate as far as your attire or things like that. Or whatever behaviors that are unacceptable. But other than that, I mean, like I said, put your best foot forward and show up as your authentic self should, be sufficient. Since,
Like, so that, and I think that's when I was trying to equate to code switching as also being artifact in the way of customs and dressing up.
I
Like,
see.
you can come up and dress like a mini skirt to some African events.
I
you
see.
you naturally, show up at the church with a miniskirt. They'll be like, wait a minute, you can't be like that. Some old lady will give you a sarong to cover yourself quickly. One will appear in a quick second.
Okay.
So those are the things that I think we were looking at today in terms of
Mhm.
coaching.
Yeah.
um, I think when we go back, I like the fact that when you say, you have to be authentic and keeping boundaries.
Yeah.
Um, those boundaries are very, very important, because I think if you don't have the boundaries, you'll not be able to succeed. You'll not succeed
Right.
uh,
Right.
in um, in code switching, because one, remember those bound. Like I said, at times I get tired, I want to move out, and I take a break. I just move out and sit somewhere and just decompress. At that point, I'm not going to be pushed. I'm not going to be done anything. If you come meet me on the when I'm sitting down, having maybe if I'm doing an event and I'm sitting on a corner and having my cup of tea and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, that's my time. You can come sit with me, but I'm not going to be acting like the way I'll be acting on stage. So don't expect to have
Mm-hmm.
the same way. Or better yet, you have to respect these actors and musicians.
Hmm.
Guess what? When they're not on stage, they're just a normal person like you.
Right. Right.
This idea of you coming and telling them, in fact, one of them said, you just meet them somewhere and you say, hey, you, come on, take an autograph. Can I have an autograph? His mindset may not be on that level. Yes, you are accustomed to him being on that level because you see him on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, he's a normal human being. And one thing I've also done in myself, in my time, some classes with these people, I you ask for permission, ask for permission,
Hmm.
um, or even just say hello, just say, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you, and just keep it moving. They'll
Yeah.
be more appreciative of you and probably remember you as a person and reference you later than the one who said, hey, come on, let's take a picture. You know what I'm saying? So,
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's my dog's barking in the background.
by the way, how's she doing?
Our dog is doing okay. She's doing
Oh,
really well.
she can run now. Sorry,
You
we.
know,
Oh,
with
yeah.
very limited. She's. I don't want her to break any other tissues. It's all this money we
Oh,
spent on this surgery.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So her activity is limited, but yeah, she's moving and grooving.
Did I tell you I watched a thingy about dogs on a plane? They were talking about how
Mm-mm.
much money spent on dogs, just on food options, on funerals for dogs. I mean, people go all out, Jen. You need to see this documentary. It was on a plane. I'm telling you, it was wild. It was wild. But
Well,
anyway,
don't even get me started on that because I actually had a dog that passed away, and yeah, and I can tell you it's expensive.
oh,
you
yep,
know, yeah.
yep, yep. But back to the topic at hand, our code switching. Um,
Mhm.
I think as we wind down, um, like I said, I know when you talked about reclaiming authenticity, I'm repeating again, reclaiming authenticity, supportive environments where you're valued, and setting boundaries. I think those are the most important things that I have taken away from what you have shared with us today, Jen.
For sure, I agree. I thought this was a good topic, and I feel like people can relate. Like I said, even non black folks, feel and identify with code switching in some regard. We've heard in some audio spaces that everyone kind of makes these alterations, if you will, in some way. But I think the thing to be mindful of is, that stress level and anxiety, and you definitely don't want to,
Mhm.
push yourself to those states if you can avoid it. So, yeah. So we will get ready to conclude the conversation. We appreciate all the ones who joined us today. The audio episode will be up very soon. And any additional thoughts before we wrap up?
It's been a nice week. I think I'll be ready for next week on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. That's when we show up Central Standard Time. Today, I think we've had some engagement with some people who've said hi hi people on TikTok. Today was off my
Oh, did
yeah,
you? Okay, I know last time we did a test for TikTok, so you actually ran it through.
yeah, it's been running today for the show for the
Okay,
first time, and also we're on Clubhouse as well.
okay,
So you can always catch the shows Wednesdays, 8 Central Standard Time if you want to be live and contribute to the questions and stuff that we have. Other than that, I think, Jen, today I'm feeling energized. Great.
okay. And then Anthony made a comment about my. So not the dog I have right now is alive and with us, but my prior dog.
Oh, yeah.
We did have other Rottweiler that passed away, I guess, like 3 years ago. So, but thank you. But my little doggy is barking in the background, and she just had surgery, so that one didn't pass away. I just wanted to clarify that. I had a prior other first dog. Um, yeah. So all right. But thank you guys for the engagement. We appreciate you guys. So we'll wrap it up here. We hope that today's conversation has inspired and enlightened you. If you have found the episode meaningful, we ask that you share it and share with friends. Hit that like button if you made it this far. Subscribe, join us, come back and see us. Our collective awareness and advocacy play a crucial role in creating positive change. Again, we invite you to stay tuned for more engaging content and look forward to continuing the conversations in the future. So, with
Hey,
that, until next time, everyone,
hi, Sambaza.
take care.